This video contains spoilers for Deltarune. Please play the game before watching this. Okay, I know this sounds ridiculous, but hear me out. Deltarune has a lot of world building based on technology. The majority of this information is directly based on specific things from real life, and a few directly reference real things. Obviously, we know a fair amount of this information from the cyber world, Queen specifically, but we also know a lot from Noelle and Birdley's interest in gaming, and from Chris and Azriel's childhoods, and some other smaller details here and there. So in this video, I thought we'd take a look at what world building there is, and what it can tell us about when Deltarune takes place. Before we get into it, I want to go over what exactly we're doing. We're taking the terms and references used in Deltarune to help identify when it takes place, right? But how do we do that exactly? Well, some of the references already have years attached, so those are easy, but a lot of them don't. To make this actually possible, instead of just saying, yeah, Deltarune probably happens between the dawn of time and the end of the world, we're going to compare the in-game references to things that exist beyond the world of Deltarune. For example, Minecraft is pretty clearly a parody of the game Minecraft. We don't know when Minecraft came out, but we can look up when Minecraft came out and assign the year Minecraft came out to Minecraft as its release date. Got it? Now, let's start simple. There's 4 times when dates are directly mentioned and aren't directly related to Queen, Noelle, Birdley, or the Dreamers. Spamton and Viraviracoon reference the year 1997, the unused version of Rousey's manual is dated 2002X, and there's a song in the OST named April 2012. April 2012 is likely named as it is due to when Toby wrote it. His fever dream that inspired Deltarune was in 2011, and he started trying to make the game in 2012. The manual being dated as 2002X might imply the year Deltarune takes place is somewhere between 2020 and 2029. However, due to the nature of it being an unused file, I would hardly take it as solid evidence. Spamton and Viraviracoon are likely referencing 1997 because that was when the first cross-platform computer virus was invented. All of these are dubious as evidence and will now be discarded, but I thought it was worth it to mention them all the same. Next up are Queen's references. Queen references a variety of internet terms, most of which can be given dates as to when they became relevant. Queen mentions Family Guy in her drama attack, which started in 1999 but is still airing today. She also references Twitter with her drama attack. Twitter was created in 2006 but gained traction in 2007, and once again in 2010. During the battle, she asks chat what happened to the rest of her drink. Using the term chat like that is usually associated with live streaming. When the streamer is talking to the viewers, they might refer to them as chat. Live streaming became popular in roughly 2010. Finally, she also mentions a candied game, which is likely referring to the mobile game Candy Crush. Mobile games became popular around 2007, and Candy Crush came out in 2012, which became popular almost immediately. Using only Queen's references, we can determine the bare minimum year Deltarune could take place is 2012. Next, let's move on to Birdley and Noelle. Noelle has her Video Game Glitches and Secrets blog, where she commonly talks about video games she likes, typically either Dragon Blazers or Cat Pedders. Dragon Blazers seems to be the in-universe foreshadowing / parallel / whatever thing, so as far as I can tell, there isn't a direct comparison to something outside the world of Deltarune. There is Soul Blazer, a Super Nintendo RPG that released in 1992 that is comparable to Dragon Blazers in a few ways, namely in that the Japanese name is Soul Blader rather than Soul Blazers, which Dragon Blazer similarly mirrors for Deltarune's Japanese localization. But that's probably not going to be relevant because 1992 is a lot earlier than our current preview. Cat Pedders, on the other hand, seems to be a reference to Cats 2, which came out in 1997. Coincidentally the same year that Spamton and Viraviracoon mentioned, but is still several years earlier than the minimum Queen gives us. Now, video game blogging itself became more commonplace around the 2010s, which does put us nicely in range. In the comments of her blog, Birdley, Smart Genius, mentioned that he deleted Minecraft and a prank caller had helped fix it and that they were now playing it together. Minecraft came out in 2009 as an alpha release and in 2011 as a full release. Sometime in 2009, multiplayer was added, although the first Minecraft server was created in 2010. Birdley mentioned that they had been playing on the server, so that is more evidence toward the 2010s. Hacker also mentions Minecraft a few times, as does Spamton, though Hacker only mentions having made their own city, and that they need to mine 1,000 blocks of obsidian to make their dog 3 colors. I can't fathom the correlation, but it is a few extra mentions of Minecraft, so I thought I'd mention it. Moving on, Birdly calls both Noelle and Susie gamer girls. The term originated in 2005, and until 2010 it was used with an extremely negative connotation. However, around 2014, the term was reclaimed as a response to the Gamergate controversy and has mostly been used with a positive connotation since then. Birdly would absolutely not call Susie, and much less Noelle, a term with that strong a negative connotation, and in fact, he uses it as a compliment, so we can safely assume that this would have been in or after 2014. He also says that he thought Queen was a gamer, a term that gained popularity in 1990, which is earlier than our current minimum of somewhere in the 2010s, but it is nice to see nonetheless. Nice to see Birdly supporting women in gaming. Birdly also thinks that wave dashing is cheating, mentioning that Chris does it when accusing them and Susie of cheating at the Dark Bulb puzzle. Wave dashing was a technique in Super Smash Bros. Melee. There is a Smash Bros. Equivalent in Deltarune called Super Smashing Fighters, which comes up several times in the game, mostly in relation to Chris, so let's start talking about them. Toriel mentions that Chris and Azrael used to play Super Smashing Fighters when they were young, and that Azrael liked the green lizard when he was little. In unused dialogue, Hacker also mentioned Super Smashing Fighters, saying they're retiring from hacking the mainframe and will instead be reverse engineering the code of Super Smashing Fighters so that they can put cartoon characters in the game for the good of society. If Birdly knows Chris wave dashes, he's probably played with them before. Considering as of now we've only seen one console with Super Smashing Fighters, we're gonna assume that Birdly was playing with Chris at the Dreamer residence. Because Birdly mentions wave dashing, we can also assume the version of Super Smashing Fighters in question is related to Smash Melee. There's also several other Nintendo-based mentions, so let's go over those before assigning dates to this batch. Alvin mentions that Azrael used to confess to sins of dropping the lizard in the pit to jump high, and that Chris would drop the lizard on purpose. This lizard is most likely the same lizard that Toriel mentioned, making the lizard that Chris and Azrael dropped Yoshi, or a Yoshi equivalent. Dropping the lizard in the pit to jump high likely refers to Yoshi ditch strats. Yoshi ditch strats were a strategy for Super Mario World where the player would jump off Yoshi to get a second jump, which would often result in Yoshi falling in the void or a pit. This is a feature of many of the 2D Mario platformers, namely any containing Yoshi. However, it was most often associated with Super Mario World, though it was also possible in New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Additionally, under Azrael's bed, there's a game console, a normal game controller, and a knockoff one. The GameCube and Wii eras were notorious for having many knockoff controllers, usually of the Mad Catz variety. Now that we've gotten all the Nintendo-based mentions out of the way, let's start looking at dates. Super Mario World came out in 1991 on the SNES, but the first Smash Bros. Game came out in 1999 on the Nintendo 64. Smash Melee, the particular Smash game that had wave dashing as a notable mechanic, came out in 2001, very shortly after the GameCube's launch earlier that year. The only Mario platformer on the GameCube was Mario Sunshine, which didn't have Yoshi ditch strats, so Chris and Azrael probably had a later console. The next console to release was the Wii, which came out in 2006. The Wii was a family console marketed towards both gaming fans and casual consumers, which makes it seem much more up Toriel's alley than the previous consoles. The Wii happened to have quite a few knockoff controllers, was backwards compatible with the GameCube, and had the Virtual Console, which allowed people to purchase older games from previous consoles and play it on the Wii. One such older game was Super Mario World, which became available on the Wii Virtual Console in 2007. 2007 then seems likely to be around when the Dreamers bought their home console, which likely was a Wii. This would also have been when Azrael was a fan of Yoshi, which Toriel says was when Azrael was very young. They could have also been playing Super Mario Bros. Wii, which came out in 2009, but Yoshi ditch strats were far more notable for Super Mario World, making that a clearer reference, so I'm going with the year its Virtual Console was released. Now that we have determined that the year when Azrael was considered very young was probably around 2007, and that Deltarune likely takes place after 2014 due to when the term gamer girl gained a positive connotation, we can try to determine what year the game takes place in. I think that the best way to determine this is by assigning a rough age for when Azrael was very young and adding to that until we reach a college age. Since the town discusses Azrael's leave as if it's his first time leaving like this, let's assume that this is his first year in college, so he's probably somewhere between 18 and 20. Let's say very young means Azrael was around 5 years old. This would mean it's been about 13 to 15 years since they purchased their game console. The two consoles that are currently in consideration are the GameCube and the Wii, which came out in 2001 and 2006 respectively. We can eliminate the GameCube due to the fact that the Mario games that contain Yoshi Ditch Strats were on other consoles, but not the Wii as it had games containing Yoshi Ditch Strats, making the current minimum 2006. If we then consider that the year the Wii Virtual Console for Super Mario World came out is 2007, that makes 2007 the current minimum. If we then add the 13 to 15 years to reach Azrael's current approximate age, this makes the possible years Deltarune takes place in 2020 to 2022. Coincidentally, all of these dates fit within the range that the date on the unused version of Ralsei's manual has, 2002X. We can then narrow it down further by guessing Azrael's current age. If he's currently 18, the game takes place in 2020, if he's 19, the game takes place in 2021, and if he's 20, the game takes place in 2022. I currently believe he's 18 due to Toriel saying that Chris is very soon to go off to college as well. This would mean that Deltarune probably takes place in 2020. I feel like this conclusion makes a lot of sense. Deltarune employs a lot of nostalgia in its world building, especially geared toward its target audience of people who would have been playing video games as children in the late 90s and early 2000s, which happened to have been when most of the dates that came up while talking about Chris and Azrael's childhoods were. Of course, a lot of the world building could pretty easily be chalked up to Toby writing whatever was most nostalgic for him and not thinking much more beyond that. However, as you might have noticed, you can make fairly precise pinpoints with some general descriptions. 2020 also lands within the years that Deltarune was developed during, making it within the time we will be playing the game. All in all, this estimate feels fairly correct to me, and even if it is somewhat off, I can't really imagine that it would be so much off that the years we've established are meaningless. And Future Penguin here. This video was originally going to have a very different outro, but I took too long editing it and so much Deltarune stuff has come out in the meantime. In fact, at the time of recording, there's only 11 days left until Deltarune chapters 3 and 4 come out. I'm very excited to play through them and make some videos on that. If you enjoyed this video and don't want to wait forever until the chapters come out and I make another one, I have some Deltarune videos on my channel. I also co-own a Deltarune theory server called Darkheart if you want to chat with some other fans and theorists, and I have a Ko-fi in case you'd like to financially support my work. Besides that, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if I missed any world building or got a date wrong or made several completely unreasonable jumps to reach my conclusion. I'll see you next time, bye!